Here is the chart of the moment for the recording of the Taurus full moon. So before I get into that, I lost a day and thought the Taurus full moon was tomorrow, so I had to release a whole bunch of videos overnight. So here's the big basics video. If you're like, what's cardinal? What does Taurus mean? What's fixed? What do the planets mean? This is that. This is the basics of getting into astrology. And then the first thing I did with my basics once I had them was I started applying them into like a lunar observation, new moons, full moons, lunar phases. And so that is like I don't want to say the bread and butter, but like that's what I'm going to be doing every week. Is I'm going to be attempting to do a lunar phase video, breaking it all down. And the video on all of that, the concepts I use, the approaches I use, some examples about new moon and full moon, and more examples about if you want to ritualize it, if you want to set the intentions and do the affirmations, that's all going to be in here. Because all of these little videos can't be like 3 hours long. And so in order to have a reference point that if I want to go deeper but I don't want to take the time, it's going to be here. The videos linking these two together are, here is a beginner timeline where the overall like first few years, what did I do, how did I progress, including getting the basics, which is this video, and then applying them using my notes into a lunation practice, which is this video. And then here is just a look at some of those notes and my moon journals. So if you want to like do the intention, affirmation, whatever, like the ritual, that information is going to be in here. And if you're wanting to know how to like break down what's going on in a lunation, to get the basics, to get to know your chart, that's more going to be these videos here. I'm going to stay a little bit away from like the woo-ness of intentions and rituals. Some of it's gonna creep through. But if you want to know, like this is how I learned how to apply the basics to myself over a lunar study. Before I go, this video as well has my like impassioned plea. It not only has the timeline of how I began, but like what I'm doing right now here on this channel. So if you're wanting a place to support, if you're wanting to get like a deeper story, I feel like I was very vulnerable in this video. So that's there, but there will also be a little snippet to help the hermit at the end of all these videos. So let's get back to it. Okay, so welcome in, welcome back team. Here we are going to talk about the Taurus full moon. So let's just take a little peek at the chart to see what's going on. There's no houses because I don't know where you are. This full moon happened at 1322 Taurus. Is there anybody else at around 13 that these planets are talking to? Any 13s here? Not really. The nodes and Lilith are something that they're going to aspect, but they're not real points. It's like these points become important, I don't know, when a planet is there. If you're going to include the trine to the south node that the moon is going to make, you might include heavier themes of tiredness, depletion, or of release, of sharing with the trine in such a way that it lightens you and feels almost like a spiritual type of thing instead of a loss, ho-hum, tiring type of thing. And if you're going to work with the sun approaching Lilith, then these might have heavier themes of, the sun being about self and expression and shining. So it might be about like shining the more like wild woman parts of you. I'm going to link, Chani Nicholas has a recent episode about Lilith that I will link you to. So they're not really talking to anybody. And then sun will eventually trine these far planets, these superior planets at 25, but like that's at least 12 days away, right? Like moon or sun moves a degree a day, 13 to 25, that's like 12 days away. So that's too far, not concerned about that. And then what's going on with the moon? Moon can't see anything in Aries or Gemini, can't see anything in Sagittarius or Libra. There's nobody in Capricorn to trine. We've already squared Pluto, so that's over. And we're going to sextile the North Node again. If you use it, great. If you don't, whatever. But we're going to sextile Saturn and then Neptune. Can't see Libra. If you want to trine the South Node, already talked about that. Nobody in Leo to square. And so we're going to sextile Jupiter in Cancer. And then looking at the moon specifically, moon is in exaltation in Taurus, so that's really nice. Moon cannot see Taurus's ruler Venus. They're in technical quincunx, so it's like moon can't be resourced by Venus, but that's okay because moon is already an established, welcome guest here. Moon is freely resourced here. And yeah, it may be difficult to get the sense of release from the Libra new moon because, like, Libra new moon, we want to release that from the opposition point in Aries. Moon is now in the quincunx, like averse, blind to Libra. So it may be less about releasing what was going on here and shining a light of like fertilizer and growth and warmth and like what's good for your growth, what's going to help you grow into whatever seeds are being planted for the Scorpio new moon. So it might be less about release and more about shining down, pouring down. Moon's ruler Venus is technically void because she can't talk to anybody who might be like in aspect. So the only planet she could possibly talk to is Neptune, who's at 29 degrees. But again, Venus can't see Pisces from Libra. So it's like, is she talking to him or not? So technically, Venus may be considered void and like she's got no one to talk to. And so the things that Venus starts or the things started in her houses may come to nothing. Just like the Aquarius first quarter moon. Maybe with the moon being void, maybe those things came to nothing or there was like delays in them, but that mileage may vary as well because she is about to change signs. And then Sun's ruler, Mars, Sun is unaspected to his ruler, Mars, which is in Sagittarius, who is about to have this conjunction with Mercury, but first a sextile with Pluto. So before we go any further, let's talk about like what even is Taurus. Taurus is a fixed earth sign ruled by Venus and has the exaltation of the moon. If you want more about this than we do here, you can go to the basics video. So what does all of this mean? Well, fixed is the building or the follow-up to a cardinal sign. So it has staying power, rigidity, fixation, a solidity, a depth, and they're concerned more with like time. They have the time to do stuff. And that time gives them like an investigative quality, but also a stubborn quality. We think about fixed earth being stubborn, like planting your heels in the dirt, like I'm not moving. You are not moving me. And then earth is a cold, so like slow and absorbing, and dry, so defined and individual sign. And then we have some terms about earth which can be like practical and concerned with the material world. And then Venus is all about harmony, beauty, a planet of moderation, pleasure, and good fortune. And the moon is about cycles, phases, connection, change, and nutrition. So Taurus is Venus's nighttime expression. So we care about the body, like the physicality of the body, the senses, and having a life you want to be living. So that's the Venus part, like enjoying yourself, and refusing to be budged from it. That is the Taurus aspect of Venus ruling Taurus. Whereas the moon is about the belly and nurturing, and Taurus is about material cultivation. So moon is fed here, and having exaltation, my keyword for that is freely resourced. Domicile is fully resourced, and exaltation is freely resourced. So if Venus was here in Taurus, she would be fully resourced. These are all her resources. She can do whatever she wants with them. Moon having exaltation here is freely resourced. She just gets to use any resource she wants. It doesn't have to do that accounting of like, well, what's in the pantry for later? Doesn't matter. It's all in Moon's belly. And so all of that combines to give me the little tagline here at the bottom of Earth of eat what you like. Now I'm not trying to like trigger or activate any kind of like eating disorders or tell you to like eat to excess or with abandon, but you have to eat. That's practical. Can you eat what you like? Can you like it? Can you like your meal plan? So that's what you're going to be fed anyway. Can you enjoy it? That is the overview of Taurus. And then before we go any further, let's also talk about like what is the full moon. If you want more on this, you can look to the moon basics video. So the monthly cycle sets set intentions, or we begin with a new moon, new cycles, and then we're building something as we grow in light and shape with the first quarter. And then we have this release of light, this illumination of light, a tension point, but also a celebration. And then as we get into another square quarter phase, we're going to have the energy to work. And so that can be more about like intentionally shedding and sharing the remaining light you have in a positive way. Because there can be some tensions with the full moon, it can be nicer to focus on releasing negativity and just letting things go. And then if you have the energy in the third quarter phase to be more like productive or proactive with it, like you don't have to cram every experience into the full moon that the internet tells you you need to. So this is the recap of some of those notes we already said. So there's no other planet at about 13 degrees in the chart that these luminaries are talking to in the full moon. The moon is applying to sextiles with both Jupiter and Saturn. Moon's ruler is unaspected from Libra, and she's technically void. Sun's ruler is unaspected from Sag and applying by sextile to Pluto, and then conjunction with Mercury, who's about to station. And all the planets that anybody's talking to are all slowing down and about to turn around. So the ruler of the sun is about to talk to Mercury, he's about to station. Moon is talking to Jupiter, he's slowing down and about to station. And Saturn, who further away but is already beginning to slow down to station as well. So, like, what does that give us? Between everybody being about to stop and turn around, and all of these quincunxes and semi-sextiles of not really being able to see anybody or talk to anybody, do we have like blind vibes? Like we're just walking on momentum, trusting, like with a hope and a prayer, with a hope and a dream, trusting that it's going to work out, trusting in like the momentum that's already there, trusting that, you know, things are already in motion, or not, because we have this stop start. So I wanted to look more closely at like what's going on because it seems pretty busy, and look specifically at who Moon is going to talk to first. It would seem obvious that Moon is going to talk to Jupiter first because Jupiter's in an earlier degree, Saturn's in a later degree. Moon moves so quickly, like there's probably not enough time for these planets to shift dramatically. But I did want to take a look because Jupiter is increasing in degree and minutes by going direct still, and Saturn is decreasing in degree and minutes by going retrograde. So I just wanted to be sure on who Moon was going to talk to. And then by looking for that, I found all of this other information, and it's busy, team. So November 5th, we have the full moon. November 6th, which is like, so this is all mountain time. In the order of things, the first thing that's happening after the full moon is that Moon is going to sextile Jupiter. And then within 2 hours, Moon is going to sextile Saturn. And then within another 7 hours, Mars is going to sextile Pluto. And then later that day, within like another 8 hours, Venus arrives in Scorpio. So it's not even a full 2 days before the ruler of the original new moon and of where the moon is now is like fully in line and aspected to everything. This supports my idea that this is a more empowered than blind situation because Venus is on the degree of the new moon. So I feel like she's got a handle on it. You know what I mean? Like she just has to walk in the door and Mama will be home and everything will be fine. Do you know what I mean? Well, maybe not, but like that's she will be in detriment in Scorpio. So anyway, but she'll know what's going on. So after Venus gets into Scorpio, the next day Uranus gets back into Taurus. So this is a second activation for Taurus and another layer of authenticity and like choosing the self, as shocking, as disruptive as that may be. Choosing authentically the authentic self and like what you need to be nurtured. What do you need to cultivate? Then Mercury stations retrograde at 6:51 and Jupiter stations retrograde a couple days later, November 11th. I have these two items after a little gap because we're doing like weekly lunar phases, and so November 5 plus 7 days, that's November 12th. So this stuff on the bottom, I'm trying not to pull up the PowerPoint bar. This stuff on the bottom, Mars conjunct Mercury and Saturn stationing direct, are maybe more for the next lunation, for the third quarter moon, and maybe less for now. But like that's still building right now, right? So I wanted to talk about all of this stuff, and I got to the end of making this video and doing the horoscopes, and Libra horoscope was the last one I did. And that got me talking about like debt and forgiveness because this full moon is in the 8th place from its ruler and from, coincidentally, the place of the new moon, what we're releasing from. And so we've got themes of debt and forgiveness there. And like you forgive people so you can move on with your life. And so that is very moon in Taurus themes. And Uranus coming back into Taurus like right after. But things could get spicy here, right? If we're talking about debt and forgiveness and all these retrogrades. So everybody's stationing. Mercury brings people back in with a station. Like that's pretty regular. Mercury is ruled by Jupiter, who is stationing. Mercury is stationing and in his detriment. So instead of Mercury bringing someone back in, maybe he's bringing the whole company brunch to you on a bus. Like maybe it's going to be a lot. Maybe it's going to be more than one or like a crowd. I have no idea. But then Mars conjunct Mercury in a hot and expressive sign in Mercury's detriment, an unaspect to the ruler. So, like, there's no oversight. There's no adult watching this bully walk up to this kid that, like, this is gym class and he's not good at it. Whereas the athlete is coming up to be like, you're not good at it. And so, can we turn that possibility of heat, of the Mars going to talk to Mercury, Mercury's not doing good, no one's watching them, into like a confident, controlled power? Because after all, this is happening in Sag. It could be fun. So what I mean is, maybe someone's coming back in and you don't like them and they owe you something and you know, have this theme of forgiveness with them. They owe you a debt. They have to pay that debt so that you can forgive the debt. Like that is how it's going to work. But maybe we need to work on releasing that debt because this person that's coming in, they're just coming in one time. What I mean by this is Mercury and Mars had a conjunction in Scorpio as Mercury like flew by because Mercury's going real fast, and now he's slowing right down. So Mercury's going to turn around and then they're going to have a conjunction at about 6 degrees Sagittarius. Then Mars is going to peel on out. Mercury's going to go backwards. He's going to stop. He's going to be with the sun for the while. And Sun is slowly catching up to Mars, but that's not going to actually like happen until we get into Capricorn. So this is like the only contact that Mercury and Mars are going to have like for a while. And so maybe this and it's the last retrograde that Mercury's having in this fire sign. And so I don't know, the scenario that came up in my head is that Mercury is stationing retrograde, as is everybody. Mars is going to contact. Maybe this is someone that's coming back and you don't really want to see them and you don't want to party with them. But it's like this is like one last party, essentially. One last fun outing. And how can you approach it so that you feel the most full? And this leads me to bigger themes of forgiveness. So, full moon themes of illuminate, release, and forgive. One of the affirmation prompts you can give yourself for a full moon is I forgive. I forgive myself for. And to forgive is to like forgive a debt, to have there be nothing to owe. So, the Merriam-Webster definition is to cease to feel resentment, to give up resentment, to forgive an insult, to grant relief, to forgive a debt. And then I've got this oracle deck, Angels of Atlantis by Stuart Pearce, and in it is Jophiel, the Holy Liberator, and he has a card on forgiveness. So I've summarized it here at the bottom of the page, but I'm going to read it out more fully. Release the negative feelings of the past. Let go of the substance of the pain that stops you from living a life of unlimited joy and love. Forgiveness doesn't mean you accept inappropriate behavior towards yourself. It means that you no longer are prepared to carry the pain of reaction within you. When we hold unforgiveness in our hearts, we may be stabbed by bitterness. So allow this angel to take this burden from you. So we've got living a life of unlimited joy and love. That's very moon exalted in Taurus, very fed, right? Especially with Uranus coming back in to activate this place with like a final jolt of self expression and like radical self acceptance, radical authenticity. And then the ideas of release bring us back into themes of the full moon. As well, there being themes of forgiveness coming already from Venus, being the planet that wants to like mollify and have everybody be friends, and Libra, which is like the scales and a place for justice, right? So, what do you need to do, or how do you need to relate to a person or a situation, not just their behavior, but also your acquiescence? How did you allow it? Where were you too giving, too forgiving? So that whatever situation is coming in with the starts and the stops and Venus moving into Scorpio detriment, Mercury stationing retrograde and then talking to Mars, Jupiter stationing retrograde, Saturn stationing direct, all these like shifts, Uranus coming back into Taurus. What do you need to do so that whatever thing that you're like, they owe me an apology, they owe me money, they owe me for the years I wasted, they owe me for the work I did, they owe me for the damage they did, whatever that is. I'm sure there's someone coming up to mind now in your head. What do you need to do so that they don't owe you an apology, any money, any time, anything? You can meet them. And previously, you would have been like, as soon as I see that person, I'm going to be like, you owe me money. Or, that tension might be what the new basis of the relationship is. What do you have to do for them and for yourself? Like, what do you have to put on them in your own mind? And what do you have to confront about yourself in your own mind so that that is not true anymore? And what that means is not just what do you have to say about them, about like where they're coming from and their limits, and like that's just the way these things are, and like maybe they weren't taught how to do that, or maybe it's not a priority to be fair, or maybe they're too embarrassed to like ever admit that no, they're not going to pay you back, or like that was an accident. Like, what do you have to phrase about them? And then about you, I was too acquiescing. I knew I should have said no, and then I said yes, and now I'm out $600 or whatever. How do you have to phrase things so that actually you don't owe me anything? You don't owe me anything. And that within that includes the boundaries that you need to enact, or where you need to place this person or situation from you. Again, the moon is in the 8th house from Libra, from the new moon, from the ruler, in a place they can't see, out of sight, out of mind. What kind of how do you need to change your behavior? Not only your mindset and how you think about yourself and the situation and the person, but where do you need to place it so that that will not happen again? So that you are not ever in a position to be owed by this person again. So that you can become free of resentment toward their motivations, their actions, their behavior, your reaction to it. And you can release the reactive emotions of pain, bitterness, anger, and embarrassment for whatever happened, and refocus your energy on living a life you fully want to be in. Are you dealing with someone that always owes you an apology? Well, you have to stop dealing with them, as well as kind of accept that you're never going to get the apology, you're never going to get the money. So you might as well drop all reaction to it whatsoever and move on with your own life. My side note here is that if you were working with astrology on some level, you were at least fate adjacent. Because if you're dealing with a birth chart and you're saying this can say something about you, it's like the nurture versus nature, like commentary. You understand that certain things are the way they are and that you have to accept them to an extent. I'm not saying you have to go full fate and you have to go like full Carolyn Miss soul contracts. Everybody you meet was like meant to be there and you chose that beforehand. I'm not saying you have to dive into there. But on some level, whether you're looking at fate and astrology or whether you're looking at like inherent personality traits and nurture nature and how people were raised and where they're coming from and where you were coming from with probably no boundaries or like too generous of an expectation of someone, things just kind of are the way they are for a lot of the part, and you're not going to get what you want from it. You're not going to get closure. So how can that help you with the things that still hurt you? But included in that is, how can that help you accept that, like, yeah, you are pained by this. You do have bitterness, you do have resentment. And so what do you have to say about them? What do you have to say about yourself? And you don't have to share that. You don't have to like decide that, well, that person's just irresponsible and doesn't prioritize relationships. You don't have to go tell everybody that that's what that person is. This is a private thing that you are doing for yourself so that you can move on, not only in your alone time, but in your relationships, including the relationship with that person. But you can also move on from being in that cycle, because this is what's going to help you enact the boundaries to be like, no, I'm not going to be put in that position again. So all of this is why I have this, like, it could be fun. Like Mercury retrograde may be bringing back a situation, an idea, a theme, a person that you in the past or even right now might be like, that person owes me XYZ. And in order to make that as smooth, as cool, as fun as possible, and to stop yourself from harboring more debt, more bitterness, more resentment, and feeling like this person or the world in general continues to owe you for whatever, how can you rephrase that to let it go? Because things are shifting. So, like, let them shift, right? That is my notes on forgiveness. And then we have like a final summary. So, the full moon phase is like a illuminate and let go phase, and it's from the Libra new moon. And this may be feeling less like release because we can't really see that place, and more like shining a fertilizer or some warmth or some intention about like how do you want to grow into the Scorpio new moon that's coming. There may be themes around shared resources, debt, and forgiveness, as we talked about, because this Taurus full moon is happening in the 8th house from Libra, which is both the ruler of the full moon and the origin point specifically of the new moon that we're in, in cycle of. And then the final note about trusting what's in motion, because things are changing, things are always in motion. There's a lot of quincunxes and sextiles, and that can either mean that there's a lot of blind spots, but like a blind spot is something that you trust. So my analogy is like you're in the house and you know someone's walking around upstairs, and then you hear them come down the stairs, and then they go into the hallway. And from the hallway, you know that they're going to shortly be in the living room. You can't hear them, you don't see them, it's like a blind spot. So if this is like a tense situation, your anxiety might start to go up here in the blind spot. And if it's not a tense situation, maybe your excitement starts to raise because maybe it was your dog and then they walk down the stairs and then they're in a hallway and now he's coming to see you, right? There's just a momentum here that might not always mean oopsies, blind spot. It might mean more just give it a minute and trust and calm down and breathe and be a little bit excited for it. So, your mileage may very much vary. Okay, so now let's look at the overall cycles. Now that we have the basics on some of the themes that might be present in this full moon. So in the monthly cycle, we have the new moon, the first quarter moon, and the full moon, and that's where we are right now. So we're talking about primarily releasing negativity. So in the monthly cycle, from the last new moon, the Libra new moon, October 28th at 28:21 Libra, what did you start, intend, or begin to hope for around the Libra new moon? And how can you appreciate the efforts or information you've developed about those topics? So if you did set intentions and you were like working on them, how can you appreciate what you worked on? If you didn't work on them, how can you appreciate that now you know that you don't really prioritize that thing and that maybe it was like a conditioned thing that you should have or were supposed to want or build towards and you just don't care? So how can you appreciate not only like what you did, but the information you got about what you did and didn't do and how you felt about it and how it turned out? Or just over the last 2 weeks, like how could you look over the last 2 weeks and be like, okay, cool, goodbye to what didn't work and like stick around if you want to what did. And then with all these shifts, starts, and stops that are approaching, what does this full moon reveal about your own stubborn staying power? Right? There's a lot of shifts that are about to happen. This is potentially a very nutritive time with the moon in Taurus being fed and having that like return to like, no, I'm badass. No, I'm worth it. We can also look at the annual cycle. So not only the new moon 2 weeks ago, following just the short lunar cycle as she moves, but also where was the last Taurus new moon and what were we beginning then that now this full moon illumination from Taurus can show us like about that place. So the last Taurus new moon was April 7th at 7:46 Taurus. So what did you start, intend, or begin to hope for around that Taurus new moon, April of 2025? Similar to right now, it's like still the full moon vibes. How can you appreciate the efforts or information you've developed about those topics, those things that you began or thought you wanted to go after or were starting to try out in April? And then what are you building for yourself in the Taurus part of your chart? Because this is like a full cycle, the conjunction and the opposition in one area. And then Taurus is, a fixed earth sign that is concerned with like accumulating resources for the self to move out of the survival mode of Aries and into like a more stabilized, I'm here to live, I'm here to stay mode of Taurus. And then Moon, who is very much about the body and the self and the emotional parts of the self, and has exaltation in Taurus, so is very fed and resourced here. So what are you building, Earth sign, for yourself, Taurus and Moon, in the Taurus parts of your chart, whatever house that might be for you? Then we can look at the longer 3-year gestation cycle where each phase, instead of being a week, is 9 months. So that means that every part of the lunation, instead of happening at cross quarters in the chart, we're going to expand it and look at all of those themes, but all happening in Taurus. So these are the charts for all of those dates. So here we have a Taurus new moon, and then we have a Taurus first quarter moon, and then we have a Taurus full moon, which is where we are right now, and then we'll have a Taurus third quarter moon. So here we are, still in the full moon part, releasing negativity, but we're going to expand that timeline to go all the way back to May of 2024, and then have the first 9 months, May 2024 to February of 2025, be the sprouting. Things are coming up. I'm trying new things. I'm seeing, what I want to do. I'm just kind of hoping, I'm just kind of being, I'm just kind of doing. And then around February of this year, 2025, until now, we would have been applying some effort or making the choices to work on it or not, to see what was coming up in May 2024 and be like, okay, over the last 9 months, yeah, I can see that I invested some kind of effort into building up those things, or I invested some kind of like limit like on myself to interact with it, to just let it do what it wants to do, and I'm going to keep my energy for me. And now we're in the full moon part where it doesn't matter how that went for you from May of 2024, we're going to release it. We're going to illuminate and see, yeah, what happened. We're going to celebrate again what we learned about what worked, or what we learned about what we don't care about, or what we do care about. And we're going to let it all go. So from this original Taurus May 2024 new moon, like what did you start around May of last year? Again, full moon. How can you see your progress in habit or motivation for the things you were hoping for back then? Did your progress change? Did your motivation change? Is like, oh, I actually don't care about that goal, or that's not fun for me, or I don't want to do that anymore. Or it could be good, but I need to do something else with it, right? Like, what did you learn? And then with all these shifts, starts, and stops around the corner, what have these past 18 months shown you about your own resilience? Fixed signs can kind of be like resilient signs, because with the fixity, it's like when something's happening, it's really happening. And there's like an attractiveness to a fixed sign, as well as to Taurus being a cold sign. It's like there's a magnet energy there. And then Taurus cares about like Venus in Taurus, and then Venus in Taurus cares about, herself, like where are the resources for her. So how have you, improved your resilience of self over the past 18 months? And how is that, you're going to lean on that during all the like shifts that are happening shortly and then long term. Also, with the gestation cycle, because it's the 3-year cycle, that would mean that about every 3 years you're in a similar phase or pattern of being in like a full moon, sharing, shining, illuminating, releasing, like beginning to shed your light and everything, around October, November every 3 years. So here we are in a full moon Taurus phase 2025. The last one would have been around 2022, 2019, 2016, and so on. So maybe you notice greater patterns here as well. Or you could look at those dates and be like, what's going on now? And by seeing what happened then, grab a larger theme about what Taurus means for you, what full moons mean for you, what that house means for you. And I have a note in the Lunar Basics video where I do an example at the very end where I'm looking at the Taurus full moon as an example in my chart. And it's like the patterns I'm noticing when I look at the patterns, when I look at the dates, they don't really have anything to do with the signs or the significations of the house. So it's like, why would that make sense? And I'm here to say that the whole process of astrology and of like introspection is finding your own cycles. Don't let the technical aspects or what the internet says or what I say override what you notice is an actual pattern in your life, and let that inform your chart. As well, I did find like a reason or a rationale for those patterns to be where they were, even though they didn't seem to line up with my chart, and I had to follow the chart down to its ruler. So that is in the other video if you want to look at it. I will put a timestamp for like what I'm talking about here for that. Now we can go into horoscopes. So, for fixed signs, for a Taurus, this moon is in your first house, or if you're a Taurus sun, in your solar house. And so, this means that this lunation is angular for the fixed signs. And so, it might be more impactful. It might be more like life is happening. So, for Taurus, the moon is in your first house, illuminating self, character, principles, direction, and stubbornly being yourself. For Aquarius risings, this lunation is happening in your fourth house, illuminating home life, private life, ancestral work, and centering yourself. For Scorpio risings, this moon is in your seventh house, illuminating relationships, clientele, any one on one, and receiving resources and advice. Like, yes, you bring yourself into a relationship, and then what do you get out of it? Like, just talking to yourself in there? Like, you know, give and receive advice kind of thing. And then for Leo risings, this Taurus full moon is happening in your 10th house, illuminating career, leadership, public life, and accepting change because everything's about to change and we don't necessarily have a handle on it, but we're shining in that change regardless, right? For mutable signs, this may be the most, like, out of all the signs, this may be kind of tiring because this lunation is happening in your cadent houses. And so the cadent houses are about, like, it's just the maintenance of life that takes energy and that is the way it is. And so there might be a reckoning here with understanding there's only so many resources to go around. This is going to be tiring regardless. How do you center those resources on yourself to nurture yourself and to nurture what you care about? So for Gemini risings, this Taurus full moon is happening in your 12th house, illuminating self care strategies and prioritizing restorative alone time. For Pisces risings, this Taurus full moon is happening in your third house, illuminating communication skills, local socializing, and regular writing habits. What do you want to write about? And it's not necessarily writing habits, writing is the XYZ. You can put a different verb in there. Whatever floats your boat. Whatever you're working on. For Sagittarius risings, this Taurus full moon is in your sixth house, illuminating health habits, routines, and including what makes you feel good. So, yes, you have health habits, yes, you have routines. No, they're not maybe meant to be pleasurable because they're like to help mitigate like the destruction of your life and the adverse effects of health and the wear and tear. But it should make you feel good. If it doesn't feel good when you're doing it, and if it doesn't feel good after you've done it, like there are different routines and habits you can lean on that probably do feel good. So if you're going to the gym and you're like, this is stupid, I hate this, maybe you can do something that like builds muscle and keeps you active and uses all your joints, and it's not the gym, right? Can you garden? Can you build a birdhouse? Can you do something else? Can you just go outside? Can you expand so that you feel good at some point in your health habits and your routines? For Virgo risings, this full moon in Taurus is illuminating your ninth house of philosophy and the influence of both the foreign and the divine. So, what do you want to learn? Where do you want to go? What resources does that take? Acquire them. Finally, for cardinal horoscopes, this is probably the most supportive energy for any of the signs because this Taurus full moon is going to be in your supportive or your succedent houses that come up to support all the angles. And so, of any of the signs, hopefully cardinal heavy natives or charts feel a bit more support or flow or trusting more of that like trajectory, things are in motion, it's going to be fine, like mom's going to be home soon, all of that kind of vibes. Okay, so for Aries second house, this Taurus full moon is illuminating your place of wealth and ideas of personal support and appropriately allocating and cultivating the resources you need to survive and thrive. For Cancer risings, this Taurus full moon is happening in your 11th house, illuminating greater networks and aspirations, and maybe asking the question of, are your dreams and your networks nourishing you? Are you being fed by them? Do you need to release some dreams or some people or some greater aspirations that were fed to you and you don't like them, right? Are you being nourished here? For Capricorn risings, this Taurus full moon is happening in your fifth house, so probably the most beneficial or the easiest time for Capricorn risings at this time. So we're illuminating joy, our joy practices and creative pursuits, and what feels good before, during, and after you do it, right? So if you, let's say you're playing video games and you've done it forever, and you're noticing that you kind of like your jaw is clenched and you're not very comfortable, but like this is fun, isn't it? Like you should feel good when you're doing it, and you should be excited to do it. So like before, and then after you should be like, that was good and I'm excited to do it again. Is it ready to release some things, some fixity, to have a bit more joy? And Libra risings, this Taurus full moon is illuminating your eighth house of shared resources in places of debt and transformation. So the question might be coming up of like, what's in it for me? Why would I continue to participate? Why would I be in this relationship like if I'm not being fed? And then this ties us all the way back into that big spiel in the middle about forgiveness and debt. And how do you move forward into this place where you're not going to be very energized, like the ruler of Libra is going to be in Scorpio. But for Libra risings, that's a place of support. So how are you going to support yourself? What do you have to release? What do you have to transform? What are you in debt to? Who's in debt to you? How can you forgive that or work to forgiving that, like for your own sustenance, for your own nourishment? Okay, thanks team. That is the Taurus full moon video. After this is going to play my like help a permit little Arms of the Angels Sarah McLachlan plea. But thanks for sticking around this far. Bye! Hey team, thanks for watching this far. This is my impassioned plea for support, and I'm lulling you in with pictures of my little boy here. So I am basically in a game of chicken with the universe, and I can't go back to the real world and real work, and I need this to work somehow. There's no business plan, there's no receipts, I just need it to work. And so I am seeking your patronage. The benefits of patronage are varied and personal, but here are some ideas from johncanningco.com about the benefits of patronage and maintaining art and artistic presence, and allowing the work that artists and mystics and hermits do to be what they're sharing instead of the work of survival, and then maybe they get to share or practice on top of it. I'm here, I'm ready to share, I'm ready to keep doing this work and more work, but I need support, I need help. So personally, the benefits of patronage would be that you would essentially be helping to ensure my survival. If I can focus on the sharing of information, including what has helped my survival, instead of focusing all the time on surviving, that would be obviously ideal. I'm not asking to thrive, I'm not asking for wealth, I'm asking for the type of abundance that lets me live quietly in isolation with not very much except for a roof over my head and food in my tummy and my cat's tummy, and sharing this information. The main benefit would be that you know that you're supporting a lonely hermit, neurodivergent, who has minimal support in the world. And you would know that you are helping to share art, esoteric knowledge, and hope. Not only the messages of hope that I may be able to spread, but the beacon and the welling of hope that would become my person, knowing that I am supported in this work. If you want a bigger explanation or a longer spiel about my situation or about the situation I find myself in, where I am now here, begging you to please offer your patronage and help, that is linked below at the last timestamp. Otherwise, here is the contact information. A few dollars for a season, a few dollars for a chapter of my life. Literally anything is so helpful. If my situation changes and I am no longer seeking survival support, if I get to a place where my survival support is taken care of and I can move into growth and what people may call abundance or wealth, I will for sure update this little message and not continue it in this fashion. But until then, typo, e-transfer, You can e-transfer support or email inquiries to the same email at wishthinkerdesign@gmail.com. Any tips, donations, or there's some Bibles and readings available at buymeacoffee/wishthinker. There's also a tarot YouTube on Wishthinker. Tips and donations can also be sent via PayPal at Hermitarius. And I do have a Patreon. There are no tiers or extra tidbits available. That can come after. Once I know what you want, I can give you what you want once you are my patron. But before then, I am not trying to figure out what people would want to buy from me. I am just trying to share the work and stay alive. And you could help. So thank you very much for your time, your patience, and your patronage. Thank you. Take care.